What's going on, guys? I hope everybody had a good weekend. In this video, we're going to be adding 2x2 rooms to our map generation algorithm. There is a lot that goes into this. So you can see on the map, it's generated as it normally does, but there's a 2x2 room added, and you can see that all of the doors have like rooms like attached to it in random. So when you go through a door going into the room, it has to know what room to put you in, like what door to put you in front of. And then when you leave the room, it also has to know what door to put you in front of. The doors inside of it have to spawn based on what rooms are actually generated, and these rooms can actually spawn side by side. So if I re-roll the map enough times, there could be a 2x2 room spawned corner-wise to this, and when you exit this room and go into that room, you have to spawn in front of the correct door still. It seems like it could be an easy topic. Trust me, it's not an easy topic. It's very, very complicated, and I'm going to try to go through it as best I can. I did initially record me actually making this, but it was like hours long, and I didn't want to post like an hour-long video or whatever. It's just too long, so I'm just going to go through the steps that I took. I also redrew the icons. I don't know if you could see that, but I used a website called Pixel Art or something, and I just made some pixel icons for my things just because they're so small. The icons that I had before, they just didn't kind of look right, and I kind of like having like these shadow effects at the bottom of the icon or whatever. So yeah, so here we are in Blender. I already made 2 videos on how to do exactly what I'm about to do. The videos are this dungeon floor video, so Blender dungeon floor, and the other one is creating a brick room with torches. If you follow both of these videos, you should be able to make a room exactly like this one. Alright, so after I was done making the room in Blender, I created a new transform inside of the level transform inside of the room that already exists. That's part of our map generation algorithm from the previous videos. And inside of this, I made a new transform called 2x2 rooms. And this will have all of the rooms that can possibly spawn when you go into a room that is a 2x2 room. And the number, so the transform that you add to this matters. So we're creating this, which is just an empty. So you can right click and click create empty. And then we're adding another transform, which is going to be the actual room itself. It's important this is numbered 0. So these rooms, they random between the rooms that are inside of it from 0 to the number of children of this transform. So it has to be like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And you can't skip any numbers because the way that the randomization works is it uses the numbers as part of the randomization. After you've added this to the thing, you can just scale it up to the same size that we had the other room. So I think this is, I did 6x6 because it ended up being a little bit too big, but just make it an appropriate size that it looks good where your character is. Make sure you don't scale the doors. So the doors you should copy from the 0 room. We didn't make a door in that video, but we made doors previously. So you can copy one of the doors from this room and make sure that it is using its own scale. So like each of these doors is 8.64 from the other room. They should be the same size, like all the doors in the entire level. As long as it's the same tech or the same model, it should be the same size. And the way that I've labeled the doors is the direction of the wall is first, and then the direction that the door is. So for example, right bottom door, this is the right wall, and then it's the bottom on the right. The reason this matters is because the bottom left door could, if you don't have like a naming convention, technically these both could be the bottom left door, right? So this is the actual bottom left door, and this is the left bottom door. That's important because you're going to need to know where you're spawning, and yeah, it's important. So, okay, so now I'm going to explain to you how we added these rooms to the game. So this is the way the map generation algorithm was working before. So we had an entire map comprised of 1x1 tiles, and this makes it a lot easier. Basically, every tile that gets spawned has a 50% chance of spawning one in all directions. And then there's a bunch of rules, like the tiles can't be touching each other, and you can't have when you get to the end of a branch, it will put one of the special rooms. And if it doesn't make enough branches, then it will just try again. It will just start over again and generate a whole new map every single time until it does it successfully. But what we need to do today is we need to add 2x2 room, right? So what it will do is it will go through each of the tiles that got spawned, like this one, for example, and then this one. It will check all of the tiles up, right, and corner-wise of each tile. And if all 4 tiles are not special rooms are like the boss room, the shop room, the item room, the secret room, etc., right? If all 4 of them are not secret rooms, then it will replace this. It will delete them. Let me get red. It will delete these tiles that already exist, and it will add 4 new tiles to our list of map tiles in our level script. So if we go back to the level script for a second, inside of our static level, there's a list of rooms. And in each room, there's all of this information, like the room number, the location, etc., right? So it's going to delete all of these ones that already exist, and it's going to add 4 more that are all going to be part of this, and they're going to have the type 2x2 room. And remember, the type is how it knows what to randomize from. So inside of here, we have 2x2 rooms as a transform. So instead of this, these rooms randoming from the normal room pool, which is like 0 to 7 here, they'll random from 0 to the number of rooms inside of the 2x2 rooms transform, and it will get a new room number based on that. Okay, so obviously there's more rules to this as well. So these rooms, they only have a 30% chance of actually spawning. So, because if this were the case, then it would spawn this one, and then it would spawn another one here, and here, and here. All of these would be spawning because there's no rooms around this. So, like, this could be one, and then this could be one, etc. Right? So, it only has a 30% chance of happening, and I'm probably going to make this less in the final release because it puts a lot of these rooms, and there's going to be other types of rooms. Like, there might be an L room, or like a longer room or whatever. So there's lots of possibilities there. So it's probably going to be lower in the final release. And then you also have to account for if this gets spawned here and it tries to spawn another one here, then these two will intersect, and that's a problem because that would mean that this tile is part of 2 rooms at the same time. We don't want to allow that. So the other thing that it has to do is it has to check all 8 directions around the room that it's trying to spawn. And if there's already a 2x2 room in any of these spots, or a boss room in any of these spots, it will not spawn the room. So, because let's say you made the room here. Let me just see if I can get rid of all these exits. Hang on. So let's say the room got spawned here, right? And this is a bad example. Let's say there was another tile here and the room got spawned here, and it was like this. Well, now there will be 2 entrances to the boss room, and you can't have 2 entrances to the boss room. We're going to do a special door for the boss room, and it's going to be, it's going to look weird if there's like 2 entrances that go to the boss room. So we have to check all around this room for other double rooms so that we don't spawn them. And probably in the future, any other type of room, because we're not going to want these to be touching other rooms. But they could touch, so it just can't. Sorry, not around this. So for the 2x2 rooms, it just needs to check if any of the squares that it's trying to generate. So like if it tried to make one here, it would detect that this square is inside of this one already. And then it can't delete a special room. It can only delete normal rooms and other types of room that might exist, like top to bottom rooms, left to right rooms, etc. But it can't double spawn, like it can't spawn on top of each other. And then the other thing is it has to check all 8 directions for the boss room. So this, again, like I said, this is very challenging to make all of these different things happen together. But just putting the rules in it, as long as you go one by one, it's not that bad. All right, so here we are in the generate level script. This is where most of this is actually going to happen. And we made this update rooms method in a previous video about adding top to bottom rooms. So inside of our map generation, if there's a room like this one, for example, it has a top door and a bottom door. And it will change this room into a special room that only has a top door and a bottom door. This allows you to put things on the sides of the room, like in our case, spikes, or the night room or something else, right? So we want to do that portion afterwards, because let's say that there was a room, I don't know, let's say this room was not an item room. This was just a normal room. And we generate a 2x2 room here. Well, now this room is no longer a top to bottom room because it has a left door. So this is super important because if you generate a 2x2 room, it's adding tiles. It could change whether there's a top to bottom room or a left or right room. So any rooms that we're adding that add rooms to the game are going to have to happen first in this method. And then anything where we're just changing rooms that already exist based on certain circumstances are going to have to happen at the bottom of this method. And ideally, we would have a method for each of these things. That way, if we have any errors or problems with the map generation, we can go into the individual methods and fix them. Like if a top to bottom room isn't working, we could go into the top to bottom method and fix it that way. But we're not going to do that right now because I've already made this and this video is probably already going to be really long. So we're just going to go through the update rooms method and I'll show you how I added this. Okay, so the first thing we're doing here is we're creating a list of rooms called rooms to replace. This is because we're going to store all the rooms that are meeting these criteria in a list. That way, if any of them are going to overlap with each other, we won't add two of them to the map. We'll only add one. We'll check if there's any intersections with the other rooms before we add them to the level. That way we're not changing it preemptively, because once you change it, you can't really change it back because it changes 4 tiles. It adds an extra tile. It does a bunch of stuff. So we want to check if the rooms that we're adding are going to intersect with each other before we actually add them to the map. We're going to go through each room in the list of rooms. If the room is a special room or a 2x2 room already, it's going to skip and go to the next room from the list. So then we're getting above, right, and right corner wise. So if you remember in our little algorithm thing, so that's how we're checking. So like, let's say we were checking this room. We're going to check here, here, and here if there's already rooms that are special rooms. And if there's not, we're going to create the room. So that's what we're doing with this. So we're checking if these rooms exist. So this is like above, right, and right corner wise. Then we're checking all directions around the room that would spawn if we decide to spawn it for the boss room and for other 2x2 rooms, so that we don't spawn these side by side if possible. So, oh, this is obviously not working correctly because 2x2 rooms are spawning side by side right now. But anyway, well, I haven't fully debugged this. I just made this, and I kind of like haven't really played through it a lot to make sure there's no bugs. But so this will check all 8 directions for the boss room and for other 2x2 rooms. And if all of these are false, that's the only time that we'll check. So we're checking if all 3 of these things are true. Are not true, because we're checking if they have a special room. And if they do have a special room, then we're not doing it. So we want all 3 of these to not be true. And then we want all 8 of these to also not be true. If all of these things are true, then we're randoming with a 30% chance to add this room to the list of rooms to replace. So because if we add multiple ones, we have to check if they're touching still. So we're just adding this to the list. And then we're going to go through the list and actually check if it's applicable to spawn it. So then inside of this, it's checking all 4 of the tiles if we've already got a 2x2 room in that spot already. So if we already have one in the list, because this method actually adds it to the level.rooms. So when it gets added, then it has to check if any of these 4 tiles are already a 2x2 room, then it's going to continue, which just skips to the next iteration of the loop. Then it's changing the color of all 4 of these tiles to be 0. So let's say the room spawns here, right? There's going to be 4 rooms that get added, and we don't want these smaller tiles to be showing. We want one larger tile that takes up all 4 squares. So if we don't make these invisible, which the 4th number inside of a color is the alpha. So if you make the alpha 0, it won't actually show on the map. We're not deleting the map tiles. The map tiles are still going to be there because there's still the 4 rooms, but there's only going to be 1 drawing. So we're just we're changing the color to be invisible for each of the pictures on the actual map itself. Okay, so then we're deleting the rooms from the level that already exists. So these are not the new rooms that we're adding. This is the room. If there's any rooms that exist, remove all. We'll only remove it if this predicate is true. So if any of these rooms don't exist, it won't matter. But if any of these rooms do return true, it will remove them from the level list of rooms. And then we're randoming a room number between 0 and the number of transforms in the 2x2 rooms transform. So that's what we were talking about earlier. And then we're creating a variable for the anchor room. So the anchor room is going to be the bottom left room. So like, let's say this gets generated here. This bottom left corner is always going to be the anchor room so that we know which tile has it. And we're also going to store this anchor room inside of each of the tiles. So if this, like, let's say this room is not the anchor room, this anchor room will be stored as a variable inside of this tile so that we know which position of the 4 it is. So, because if you go from this room into this room, you need to know that you're spawning this room, which is technically is going to be this room, not this room. So that it sounds pretty complicated, but basically we're saving this as the anchor room. Just remember that anchor room is the bottom left room in this case, because that's also where we did the check to find the room. So when we were doing the check here, this is the anchor room, and then this is where it's checking. These are the auxiliary rooms that get added to the list that are just, they're not really rooms, they're just attached to this room. This is going to be the actual room itself. So yeah, the first room that gets added, again, this is the bottom left corner room, is going to be the anchor room. So we're setting this room variable to be R, which is the room that we're adding. And then for the other 3 rooms, this will be the top one, this will be the one to the right, and this will be the corner-wise room. For all of them, we're setting anchor room to be false because it's not the anchor room. For all of the other tiles on the entire map, they are all anchor rooms by default because they're only 1 by 1. They are the anchor room. But when we have rooms that are not 1 by 1, that are larger, one of the rooms has to be the anchor room, so we know where what position it is on the thing, because it's taking up more than 1 tile. So only 1 room can be like the anchor, and the rest have to be auxiliary rooms, right? So this, each of them we're setting anchor room to be false, so it's not the anchor room. So when we go to check later, we can find that out. And we're setting the anchor room itself, like anchor R, to be this. And we should actually do this up here as well. Because you could just do it like that. So we're setting this so that way when we go in, actually like draw it on the map and stuff like that, we can determine where it is and we can find out which one of them is the anchor room, right? So that's what we're doing. And then we're reusing this draw on map method to actually draw this on the map. So I'm going to go ahead and press F12 on this. Don't panic. It's not that bad, kind of. Yeah, so this is the method that we had for drawing rooms on the map. If the room type is 2x2, I've changed the tile name to be 2x2 room. So this way, when you're actually running the game and you're trying to debug this, you can find out which tile it is. So like if you go into the UI and the canvas and the map and there is no 2x2 rooms in this one. Let me just press tab. So you can see that these 2 are 2 by 2 rooms. So let's click M so we can see the map. So if you click on this, because we need to know which ones they are so we can see the position X and position Y. This was just for debugging while I was adding this. So you can see there's 2x2 rooms. This is just the name of it. So right here, we're naming the tile 2x2 room, as you can see on the left here. Then we're creating a map tile like we normally do. So this is the default for what we were doing before. And this is what we're going to do if it's a 2x2 room. So each of the tiles needs to be double the height and double the width. And then we multiply it by the icon scale, but then we need to add back the padding. So inside of each of these, if there's 4 rooms like this, inside of this, there's a gap because each of these has like a gap in between the tiles, right? So there's a gap in between them. We need to fill that in. So that's part of the size. So after you add like the room height and width together, you have to add the padding back to it because the padding is there still, right? So if you don't add the padding back, the room will end up being only like this big. So like I said, it's kind of confusing to draw this on the map. And then we're moving it accordingly. So we're setting the location to actually it's starting at the normal location. So because it's an anchor room, it's spawning in the bottom left corner. It doesn't need to be moved because it's already in the correct location because the bottom left one is the bottom left one. So we just need to multiply this by the height and then add the padding back to it where it's going to be. This is really confusing. I'm not going to go into details of how this is working, but this draws it in the correct spot on the map. And the other really important thing to note is that we're only drawing these if they are the anchor room. So the bottom left one is getting drawn and it takes up all 4 slots. If it's not the anchor room, like these 3 are not getting drawn, only this bottom one is getting drawn and it's taking up the spot of all of them. So I hope that makes sense. I know that I probably lost everyone that was watching this, but it's just complicated, so I don't really know how else better to explain this. Okay, so now we're going to go through the change room script, which is what happens when you actually walk into one of these doors. So the method that we're using is this on controller collider hit. So this is what happens when you walk into any object. So the first thing it does is make sure that the change room is not on cooldown. So you can't change rooms multiple times, like instantly. There's a specific period of time before you're actually able to go between the doors. And you have to add logic because initially we had a left door, a right door, a bottom door, and a top door, right? So if we have a room like this is the top door, this is the left door, this is the right door, and this is the bottom door. But if we have a room like this, now we have a a left top, a left bottom, a top left, a top right, a right up, right down, bottom left, bottom right. So you have to handle all of these possibilities when you walk through the door instead of just the one. So it becomes way more complicated to do that. So we're handling these same things because similar things can happen depending on what you do. So remember, we're always doing it based on this room because this is the anchor room. So if we go through the top left door, we're going up 1 and left 1. So we would be -1, right? So we would be going +1y and -1x because we're going this way, right? So it's important that we're using the anchor room always. We're always using the anchor room to determine where we're going because the room can take up a certain period of a certain size, right? So let's say we had another room like this. We could have it where if we go through this door, it's because this would be the anchor room in that case. You could use the anchor room to find out where you're going. We're not going to do that right now. That's going to be a later video, but that's what we're doing here. So if we're going through the left bottom door, then I added this if statement to the bottom because it wasn't working. Okay, so this is kind of redundant. So if we're going through the left bottom door, then it's going to be -1 and 0 because the left bottom door, in accordance to this, is right here. So we're going left 1, so -1x and 0. And then we're doing another if statement. So if it's the left top door, then it's -1 and 1. So -1x and then +1y. So I mean, that's what we're doing for all of these. So it will be the same concept for the right door, the top door, and the bottom door. And then we've also completely changed the check door method. So this is completely different. So right here, we're checking if the current room is the anchor room. And if it's not, we're setting the location to be the anchor room. So this will eliminate, like, if you're in a room like this and you go in here and this is the current room, this will do the logic based on the anchor room, which is the bottom left door in this case, or the bottom left corner of the room, rather than doing the logic from here. So again, kind of confusing, but that is kind of what it is. And then we are enabling, we're moving in front of the correct door. So before, we only had to move in front of the door based on the direction, left, up, right, or down, which would put us in front of the retrospective door. But in the case where we're going into a 2x2 room, there's now 8 doors. So this is the logic that will find which door we're actually in front of, and it will actually put us, so it will get which door it is, like which part of the room it is, and it will set our character's location to be in front of that specific door. Oh yeah, so also the we're setting the explored. So if we enter a room, we're setting the anchor room to be explored and not the room that we're in. So like if we're in the top right room, the room that needs to be explored is the bottom left, because explored means that the tile will show white. So let me just show you. So see how these tiles are white? By default, I don't know if it's gonna let me do them. By default, they're gray. You see, so when you explore them, they become white. So we need to set the bottom left room to be the one that is revealed rather than if it's any of the other ones, it will be wrong because they're not actually drawn on the map. So it doesn't matter if they're explored or not because the icons are not visible for them. So then we need to enable the doors, which again is also something very complicated. So when you enter a room that's 2x2, you need to check all of the surrounding rooms for doors. So like if you enter a room, let's say you enter this room, let's just reuse this one because this is getting really messy. Actually, let me start a whole new file because there's too much garbage on this. Okay, great. So if you enter this room here, this will check all the directions around the room from the anchor room. And if they're there, it will enable the doors that are in this thing. So the first thing it does is it disables all the doors that are there. So this disables all of the doors in the doors transform inside of this. So like on the left here, we have, this is our only 2x2 room. There's a transform called doors, which is the same as all of the other rooms. So room 0 also has doors. It will disable all of the doors that are inside of this transform. And then it will re-enable the doors where there's actually a room like in that position. So that's what this code did this wrong. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to be uploading a copy of the project that has this all working and debugged. So this is actually wrong. This is how I initially made it. This is actually currently wrong. You don't need to do this. You need to check from the anchor room. So from the anchor room, you should be checking. This would be +1 and sorry, a -1x and sorry, +1y. To check this door, and then like etc. based on this. So this would be 2y and 0x and etc. Right? So you just got to check all the things around this. And if there is a room on any one of these, you have to enable the corresponding door. I'm going to rewrite this before I post the project, but that's what will enable the doors. And then I think that might be it. So right now I've disabled secret rooms because adding an X on the wall for the secret room will add a whole layer of complication. I'll probably add that back at a later time. I left some of the code for it, like instantiating like the X on the wall, but I disabled the secret room for now just because it's too much for one video. This video is already going to be like 30 minutes. So yeah, so I mean, that's pretty much it. That's all I did to add this. And this enables the framework for you to do any shape of door. So in the future, we're not just going to have this type of room where it's 2x2. We're also going to have L-shaped rooms and longer rooms. And like, for example, some of our top to bottom rooms, let me enable one of them so I can show you. So right now we're in a start room. This top to bottom room should be 2 tiles instead of 1 tile. And it should only spawn in places where there is 2 tiles to accommodate it that are top to bottom. Because like if we draw this as 2 tiles on the map, we have to make it accommodate for that. So we might do that in the future. I'm not sure if we'll do that. We'll have to find out because it kind of looks weird having this where we're halfway through what looks like 2 tiles. It should really be 2 tiles if it's this large, but we're not going to worry about that right now. We'll worry about that in a future video. If you guys are enjoying the series, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. It takes a lot for me to commentate on the entire process for adding something like this to the game. So yeah, if you like the video and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. And hopefully I will see you guys in the next one.